There's a lot of good agents in Ventura, but none of them can give you an inventory absorption report based on price point and volume. But I can. So if you're a homeowner and you're looking to sell or you're looking to sell to repurchase, this report is going to be so important to you because you're going to see these price points based on volume, based on competition, to see what your chances are of either getting your number as a sale or getting a better price as a buyer. So if you use this correctly, and there's just a little bit of shift in the market that we're going to talk about buying in 2026, this is going to be gold. And we're going to get into it right now. Okay, so let's get into this data. This is our December report, which is what happened in November. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to speak about what happened, what transpired this entire year, and how these inventory reports were changing. Some of the consistencies and where we saw inflections. So right off the bat, April was our big inflection point. That was the part where we saw inventory hit that 200 mark. And in the case of supply and demand, all of a sudden we had enough supply in the market to prevent the prices from really catapulting up as if they were. Even when the rates went up because inventory was so thin, prices continued to climb. Now think about that. If we had a marketplace of people who were paying 6, 7, or sometimes even 8% at prices while going up, they were paying so much more than people who were buying at the 2 and the 3%. So the point here is now we've come to a point where the incomes of the next people in line are really different than the people who are paying the 6 and 7% who could afford those higher interest rates. And where we see that inflection point in this working class community of Ventura, Camarillo, and Oxnard is at that 1, 2. The consistent thing in data and what I saw, especially this month, really shows that there's a ceiling there. So if you're a seller and you've got a property that's worth 1.4, 1.6, 1.7, or 1.8, you cannot be aggressive or pie in the sky with your pricing. There's properties once, and then the other inflection point is 1.8 to like 2.5, 2.6, where there's a bunch of properties on the market and there's like one in escrow. So I'm going to read off this chart right here. And this is going to be, you think about, if you're a homeowner, you think about where your property is priced. And then let's talk about what we can do to price it correctly to get it to sell, and then where your options for your next purchase are. So if you're moving out of state, that's one thing. We can put you in touch with one of our Sotheby's agents or one of our networks that are here on YouTube. We've got two schools of people who are YouTube colleagues, also Sotheby's colleagues that are great agents that I have personal relationships with. We've got them all over, and we can refer you. But if you're moving within town, that's where I really like to help, is to sell to repurchase, because it's not easy to do, but it is very doable. You'll hear a lot of naysayers say, oh, you can't do that. That's not doable. It is doable. But let's just get into this data. So over here with the under 600,000s, now we could get more niche into this. So if you have a property here, and I may do an under 600s or condo video as well, but that's a pretty good sized number, that 31 as far as actives. And then open escrows is 11 and closed is 15. So what's really powerful about that is the absorption's happening. We had a lot of closings. The number's kind of coming down, 11 escrows. And then there's a little bit left over there, but not much. It's not a super leftover. It's almost, let's see, it's 26 to 31. So it's very, very close in what's coming on is getting sold. What's the struggle in that range is most of them are above 5. There's a few in the 4s, is that you can have a seller that's at 525 or 550, and really it's a $500,000 property. So 50 over is like, we're not getting those big boosts when we had the thin inventory and the low interest rates. There's enough competition out there, 31. There's enough competition out there that someone else is going to list at 515 or 495 or 485, and that's going to get absorbed and sold. It's the exit plan. It's not always the numbers. It's about getting it done. So being able to be really strategic about your pricing, if you've got a much better chance of getting 510 or 515 if you list at 495. If you list at 525, what we're finding is buyers just aren't writing those lower offers. They want to see the price that they can either write at or lower than that. So this listing high overall, there's a really good point. So 62 and 61, if you took that away, if you took away the 61 closed, you end up with 100 properties that are still going to be on the market, because on average we're going to end up with 60 going into escrow. So there's going to be 100 properties not going to sell in December that are going to be on the market. They're going to be on there in January as well. And the competition shows that we're really going to see it come in April. But April's when we saw the absorption. We'll probably see it happen in March. So we call it the pre-spring fling is February. The first or second week of February, the last couple of years, we saw the most activity for whatever reason, but the stars aligning where there's good news with Fed data. People have got their taxes done, or they're prepared, they know where they're at, and all of a sudden there's like this frenzy of movement trying to beat that market and get ahead of it, of that spring. So the pre-spring fling. So let's move on to the 6 and 7s. 6, 7. We had to, my daughter. Okay, so we've got actives is 11, escrows is 4, closed is 6. It's not a ton. It's pretty consistent, but there's not a big gap. If you put 4 and 6 together, it's only one off of 11. So it's a pretty good absorption. 7 to 8, same thing. It's almost perfect. You got 10 actives. You've got 5 and 5. So that's absorbing well. If you're in those price points, what this means is that these are very strong price points where we've got first-time home buyers. You probably have moved-down buyers, and a lot of people looking to move and purchase in these price points. So you're very strong. The next step to do after this would be then to get comprehensive on what is the neighborhood like, because what this does is this shows us where people are spending money and what they're spending money on. But we want to get more of a micro market report to the neighborhood. 8 to 9 was traditionally our strongest. It was almost a perfect number, where if we saw 15 properties active, 15 opened escrow, and 15 closed, we're seeing a little bit more where the closings are lower. Open escrows is 15, so that's strong, and then the active is 18. So it's a little bit of a shift, a little bit less absorption. So on all of these graphs, we'll see we have a little bit less absorption. That's seasonality. That's fine. That's totally fine. So then let's move on to the 9s. So 17 active, and 8 opened escrow, and 9 closed. So again, we're seeing the absorption happen. And all of this is going to be price sensitive. So if you've got a $900,000 home and you're at 950, you're not selling. You're sitting on the market. You're going to have to drop it anyways. There's no surge of it, things going up and someone wanting to pay or overpay to compete. There's just not enough competition out there. There's competition out there at market value, but not at above market value. So, but it's still very strong in absorption there. So now this 1 to 1, 2, this is good too. 13 properties active, 7 are in escrow, pending, and then 5 had closed. So that's good, but it's also kind of trending down because the absorption of 5 closed is not as strong. Now here's where it gets really interesting. We've got 12 properties, the 1, 2 to 1, 4, 12 active, only 2. So that's a big number. Decline. So we were going 15, 8, 7, working its way down. If you see that, the absorption, there's just not as much competition. 2. So the 5 closing is good. So what that tells me is these are the people who are like the late shoppers that were kind of picking through, but they're savvy. These are savvy buyers. They know it's the fall. They know they have the advantage. They can kind of pick through what's left. The only caveat is our 164 number. So we are up to 200. So as it's thinning down. So I had said in March and April, I said, if we were really going to see this crash, this turn, really big turn of events, we would see that number go from 2 to 220 or 230. That didn't happen. It went the other way. That's the big point. That's the big thing that consumers have to understand. If you're a buyer or you're a repurchaser, sell to repurchase, you've got to understand, repurchaser, it's tough. You've got to work to get your home sold, and you've got to work to get your next purchase, because you've got to be attractive. So it could be really tough if you've got a contingent sale. You got a contingent sale, $50,000 over market value. The other realtor is going to look at the comps and be like, okay, well, I don't think we're going to go into escrow with you because you can't even get you're not even going to get your house sold. So you have to be very strategic, and this is the key. If you could go at a 2% or 1% under market value, get your home sold quick, and you're purchasing in one of these price points where they're struggling, you've got a better chance of getting a deal. So you might give 1, 2, or 3% on your sale, but you could gain 5 or 10 on the purchase. So that's what we're getting into. Now we're going to get it right into. So if you're selling at 900 to 1.2, you've got a great chance of selling your property for a market value price. And if you're buying up, you've got a good chance of getting a 1.6, 1.7, or 1.8 property for like 1.5 and potentially saving like 300,000. It's got to be the motivated sellers. Not all sellers are motivated. There's expireds, there's holds, there's people canceling and pulling off. We can get into that report on another time too. But this is your active. This is what people are going for. So here's the big inflection going from here. So from 1.4 to 1.8 is a pretty big. That's a pretty big gap there, but it's kind of that 1.5 number. But it just goes to show you. So we've got 10 actives, 3 open escrow, and 4 closed. That's actually pretty good absorption right there. So we see that inflect. But the reason it's the inflection point is because that's up to 1.8. So how many of those properties that are closed were actually priced between 1.8 and 2.1, or even priced between 2.1 and 2.4? So they may have really come down, and we've seen it. So what happens is they'll do the original list price, they'll do reductions, but then it only puts the last list price there. So you've got to have someone with boots on the ground paying attention. Oh no, when that came on, it was much higher. And we've seen it. We've seen it where they've taken like 20% reductions, 4 or 5 or 600,000. Because look at the data here. On the closed, 0, 0, 0, 0. So basically, from above 1.8 all the way to 3 million, like nothing closed last month. And there's only a few between 2.1 and 2.4, and basically between 2.1 and 2.9, there are only 3 properties even are absorbed and that are going to close. So let's go up to this area here. So look at the activity, kind of up, down. This 7.8 this is a very interesting spot because people start to want quality. We talk about buying real estate. It's not cheap. But this is where people do well. This is our really nice middle, what I'd call our upper middle class shopping between 9 and 1.2, the people that are working for their dollars, really putting it in. When you get to this other one, and then it kind of skips, it really fades down. When you get to like 2 million to 3, 3.5 or 4, this is the new luxury market. This is where you have buyers that probably have stronger equities, assets, real wealth. They have built wealth. They're retired or semi-retired. Either that, or there's a small percentage of these are actually millennials that have really high incomes, work in tech, that have done really well with technology, and they have generational wealth. So they have the down payment coming from probably the silent generation. They're skipping my generation X, and they're gifting it down to the grandkids. So they're getting a really good start. And some people, have issues with that, but it's like, look at it. If you have that, you want to do that. You don't want to wait to gift later after inflation. Do it now. Let them plant the seeds and watch it grow. So they've earned it because they're the high income earners. So good for them. And that's where we're seeing in that luxury market, that 2 to 4. Once you hit 5, that's really a different market. That's the uber luxury 5 to 25 million, where they tend to have handlers. You tend to have different people doing business for and kind of shopping for those buyers. Those buyers really like privacy. So that's why they have handlers. A lot of times it'll be someone running an LLC for them and purchasing in that realm. And that really gets thin, and it gets there's such a small amount of people that can afford that it's almost a different type of offering, the way that it's marketed in. It's very direct to the individuals, and there's lists of when these types of properties gets available. and we speak about that with some of our luxury agents in the San Francisco area and Hawaii and Colorado, is how these lists work. So Ventura is, Ojai's there, Santa Barbara's there. Ventura's on the cusp of that. It has some properties, but let's be honest, it's more historically was the working ag town. It's still a working class town, and we'll have people who like that vibe, and they'll maybe buy down and they'll live here, and they could be at the 5 to 25 million, but that's not their lifestyle. So you can get really good Southern California homes, beach homes, hillside homes here in Ventura for a fraction of the price of what you would pay in Santa Barbara, Ojai, or Malibu. So that's one of the advantages there. But the proof's in the pudding. This is where, in the middle, where the main bulk of where we're seeing our buyers purchase. So with this information, if you're someone who's a move up buyer, this is really valuable for you, because you want to be able to sell your property for top dollar. And to do that, you've got to get it done. And I love my clients. I love people. I love everyone who's been working with me. But we've got to do a better job of getting disclosures done before you list. You've got to do a better job of getting the property, pre-inspected and fixed up. There are so many inflection points of an escrow that can cause it to fall out and not work. And there's timeline sensitivity. So when people don't have their disclosures, okay, well, we'll get to that. We're not even in escrow yet. And then all of a sudden, you end up in escrow. But even before you get in escrow, if you can give disclosures before and you can give inspections before, the weight of what that does for your transaction is there's nothing more for them to discover and to pick apart. So knowing this on the buy side also is an advantage. If someone's not giving the disclosures in a time limit, they're just extending your inspection period. You get 5 days, past a 14-day inspection whenever they give them. And that's all of them. There's 5 of them that need to be done. These are the types of things that when hiring a professional, that we know the score and we know how to use the leverage to get you the best deal on the purchase, but also so that you keep the equity that you deserve. You guys, thanks so much for watching. This is a good data report. We're going to continue to taking it up and up and up with this data as far as the graphs. We're going to integrate some AI and have really incredible information that are heat map, more than just the city of Ventura. We're going to be doing these for Camarillo, Oxnard, individual ones, but then collectively the county. And if you guys need anything for real estate, international, this is Sotheby's International. So just let me know. We have other YouTube agents. We have Sotheby's agents. And if you like the way that we do it and you have any questions or need help with that, thanks so much. And again, if you haven't done so yet, please like and subscribe. And leave a message in the comment. Let me know if you like it, if you don't like it, if you want to see more information. I'm sure expired holds and canceled, those would be good. Days on market, people like to see that. But what this style does is it shows you where people are spending money, and then we can use that with the other data and kind of figure out where you need to be. You guys, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you soon.